Because of her husband's mistress, his family and her mother-in-law kicked her and her 3-day-old baby out into the snowstorm. They had no idea she had just inherited a $2.3 billion fortune from her grandfather. Just 24 hours later, she made them live in hell. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family channel. May the Almighty surround every woman with a peace that softens her worries, a love that protects her soul, and a strength that never fades. May her footsteps be guided by mercy, her nights be filled with calm, and her mornings rise with blessings meant only for her. May every pain she carries quietly be replaced with joy, and every tear she hides be turned into comfort. She is the heart of every home, the giver of warmth, the keeper of endless love. My beautiful family, I see you watching but staying silent. Tell me honestly, have you forgotten your brother Mr. Peter, or do you feel I'm no longer worth your words? Speak to me. Your voice matters more than you know. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, I am with Mr. Peter. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and broken promises. Mikey Fanning held her daughter against her chest, feeling the tiny heartbeat through the thin hospital gown. 3 days old. Sage had been in this world for only 3 days, and already Mikey knew she would die for her. The December snow fell thick outside the window, blanketing the city in white silence. Each flake seemed to mock her, beautiful and cold, and indifferent to the warmth she tried to create in this sterile room. The door burst open. Willem Goldsmith walked in first, his jaw set in that way Mikey used to find handsome. Now it just looked cruel. Behind him came his mother Eleanor, dressed in a cream cashmere coat that probably cost more than Mikey had earned in a year as a teacher. The scent of her expensive perfume invaded the small space, overwhelming the smell of baby powder and fear. And behind Eleanor, holding Willem's hand like she had every right to, walked Cynthia Berry, the mistress, the other woman, the reason Mikey's marriage had shattered while she was pregnant and terrified. We need to talk. Willem's voice was flat, emotionless, not the voice of a man who had just become a father, the voice of someone delivering bad news to a stranger. Mikey pulled Sage closer, feeling the baby's warmth against her chest. Not now, please, she's only 3 days old. That's exactly why we need to talk now. Eleanor stepped forward, her heels clicking on the linoleum like a countdown. Before you get any ideas about what you're entitled to. Mikey's stomach dropped. The way Eleanor said entitled made it sound like a disease. What are you talking about? Willem wouldn't meet her eyes. He stared at the wall behind her head, his hands still intertwined with Cynthia's. Their fingers laced together while Mikey held his daughter alone. I want a divorce. I should have asked for one months ago, but I was weak. I let guilt keep me trapped. Trapped? The word came out as a whisper. Mikey looked down at Sage, her beautiful brown skin, her perfect tiny fingers curled into small fists. Your daughter was born 3 days ago, and you feel trapped? That baby, Eleanor said, her voice dripping with venom, each word carefully chosen to cut, is exactly the trap my son is referring to. You got pregnant to keep him, and it won't work. Cynthia spoke for the first time, her voice sugary sweet with an undertone of victory. Willem and I are in love. We have been for over a year. It's time everyone accepted that and moved forward. Over a year. The words hit Mikey like a physical blow. That meant the affair started before the pregnancy, before the struggles, before everything fell apart. It meant their entire marriage had been a lie for longer than she'd known. Mikey felt something crack inside her chest. She looked at Willem, really looked at him, searching his face for any sign of the man she had married 4 years ago, the man who had promised her forever in a small ceremony that his mother had refused to attend, the man who had told her that love was stronger than prejudice, that his family would come around, the man who had held her when she cried about her mother's death and promised he would never leave her alone. That man was gone, if he'd ever existed at all. Willem, please, look at your daughter. Just look at her. He didn't. He kept his eyes fixed on that spot on the wall, as if Sage was something he couldn't bear to see, as if acknowledging her existence would make this harder. Eleanor pulled papers from her designer handbag, the motion practiced, prepared. "These are divorce papers. You'll sign them today. You'll take nothing from this marriage. The apartment is in Willem's name. The car is in Willem's name. You brought nothing to this family, and you'll leave with nothing. I'm not signing anything right now. I just gave birth. I almost died. The doctors said..." "We don't care what the doctors said." Eleanor's words were ice, each syllable precise and deliberate. "You're going to sign these papers, and you're going to leave this hospital today. We've already spoken to administration." Mikey's hands shook. Sage woke up sensing her mother's distress and started to cry. The sound pierced Mikey's heart. "It's a blizzard outside. The nurses said the roads are barely passable. I have nowhere to go." "That," Willem finally spoke, his voice hollow and distant, "is not my problem anymore. You wanted this baby so badly. You trapped me with her. Then figure it out, Mikey, just figure it out." The words hit her like physical blows, each one landing with the weight of everything she'd lost. Mikey looked at Cynthia, who smiled. Actually smiled. A small, victorious curve of her lips that said everything about what this really was. "The baby's clothes," Eleanor continued, clearly enjoying this moment of absolute control, "were purchased with Goldsmith money. The blankets, the diapers, everything in this room, Goldsmith property. You'll leave it all here." "You can't be serious. She's 3 days old. It's below freezing outside." Eleanor pressed a button on the wall. Within seconds, 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Large men with blank expressions and radios on their hips. They looked uncomfortable, but they were following orders. "This woman is trespassing in a room paid for by my family. She needs to leave immediately." "Ma'am," one security guard said, his voice apologetic but firm, "we need you to gather your things and exit the building." Mikey couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was closing in. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Not in America, not in a hospital, not to her baby. "Please," she begged Willem one more time, her voice breaking on the word. "Please don't do this. She's your daughter. Your blood. Please, Willem, I'm begging you." Willem finally looked at her. His eyes were empty. Whatever love had been there, whatever decency, was gone, replaced by something cold and final. "You trapped me with this baby. Now live with your choice." The security guards moved forward. One of them took Mikey's arm, gentle but firm. His touch was almost apologetic. "Don't touch the baby roughly," he muttered under his breath. "I got kids." They stripped Sage of the hospital blanket, leaving her in just a thin onesie. The baby's cries grew louder, more desperate. They took the receiving blanket Mikey had wrapped her in. One security guard looked away, shame crossing his face, but he didn't stop his partner. Eleanor held out a single thin blanket, the kind they gave to patients in the waiting room, threadbare and inadequate. "This is hospital property, not Goldsmith property. Take it and leave." Mikey wrapped Sage in the inadequate blanket, her hands shaking so hard she could barely hold her daughter. The baby started crying harder, sensing her mother's terror. Each cry felt like a knife in Mikey's heart. "I'll give you 1 hour to sign the papers," Eleanor said, checking her expensive watch as if this was just another appointment in her day. "After that, I press charges for theft of Goldsmith property." They escorted Mikey through the hospital halls in her thin gown and bare feet. The fluorescent lights felt too bright, too harsh. Other patients stared. Nurses whispered. One tried to intervene, but the security guard shook his head. "Family matter, ma'am." The automatic doors opened, and the December cold hit Mikey like a wall. Snow swirled in the wind, stinging her face, her bare arms. She had $47 in the pocket of her gown. Her phone, her wallet, her coat, all in the apartment that was no longer hers. Sage screamed against the cold. Mikey stumbled toward the bus stop, her bare feet going numb on the icy sidewalk. Each step felt like walking on knives. The thin blanket was already soaked through with snow. She tried to shield Sage with her body, tried to use her own warmth to protect her baby, but the cold was everywhere. Relentless, merciless, she collapsed onto the frozen bus stop bench, her vision blurred. Sage's cries were barely audible now, just weak, mewling sounds that terrified Mikey more than the screaming had. Hypothermia. The word flashed through Mikey's mind like a warning siren. Her baby was dying. Right here in her arms, her 3-day-old daughter was dying. "Please," she whispered to no one, to God, to the universe. Tears froze on her cheeks. "Please don't take her. Take me, but don't take my baby." Cars passed by. People walked past, heads down against the wind. No one stopped. Why would they? Just another homeless woman with a baby. Not their problem. Everyone had somewhere warm to be. A car horn honked. Mikey looked up through tears and snow to see a silver Mercedes pull up to the curb. An elderly white woman with silver hair rolled down the window, her face horrified. Her expression was the first kindness Mikey had seen in 3 days. "Dear God, what happened to you?" "Please." Mikey's lips were blue. She could barely form words. "My baby. Please help my baby." The woman was out of the car in seconds. She wrapped her own cashmere coat around Mikey and Sage, bundling them both. Her hands were quick, efficient, gentle. "Get in the car, now. We're going to my house." "I don't know you. I can't." "You're going to die out here, and so is that baby. Get in the car, or I'm calling an ambulance, and I promise you those hospital bills will bury you." Mikey had no choice, no options left. She let the stranger help her into the warm car. The heat blasting from the vents felt like paradise and pain at the same time. Sage's cries grew stronger as warmth hit her little body. Mikey sobbed in relief, great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. "I'm Lorraine," the woman said, driving carefully through the storm. "And you're going to tell me who did this to you." 20 minutes later, Mikey sat in Lorraine's brownstone living room, wrapped in warm blankets, Sage nursing successfully for the first time since the hospital. The baby's small mouth worked hungrily, desperately, and Mikey felt her milk let down with painful relief. Lorraine had made hot tea and soup, had found baby supplies from somewhere. A friend with grandchildren, she'd explained, had treated them both like precious things instead of garbage. "His name is Willem Goldsmith," Mikey finally said, her voice hoarse from crying. "His mother is Eleanor Goldsmith. They threw us out because I'm black and poor, and he has a white mistress from a rich family." Lorraine's face went pale. She set down her teacup with a sharp click. "Eleanor Goldsmith. I know that woman. We're on the same charity boards." She shook her head in disgust. "That racist harpy. My God, I've watched her destroy people for sport. But this is evil." Mikey's phone... No, wait. She didn't have her phone. But Lorraine's house phone rang. Lorraine answered it, then held it out to Mikey, her expression surprised. "It's for you. Someone named Marcus Sheffield." Mikey took the phone, confused. "Hello? Miss Fanning? This is Marcus Sheffield from Sheffield and Associates. I'm the attorney handling your grandfather Desmond Fanning's estate. I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. The hospital gave me this number as your emergency contact location." Mikey's heart stopped. Her grandfather, the man who had disowned her mother, who had refused to meet Mikey because of her father's skin color. "My grandfather. I haven't spoken to him since I was 10. He disowned my mother when she married my father." "I'm aware of the family history, Miss Fanning. I have unfortunate news. Your grandfather passed away 2 days ago." The same day, Sage was born. Mikey felt dizzy. One life ended as another began. "I'm sorry for your loss," the lawyer continued, his voice professional but not unkind. "But I need you to come to my office immediately to sign papers. Your grandfather left you everything." "Everything." "Everything, Miss Fanning. The hotels, the real estate holdings, the investment portfolio, the cash assets. As his only living heir, you've inherited approximately $2.3 billion. The phone nearly slipped from Mikey's hand. $2.3 billion. The number was so large it didn't feel real. Lorraine caught it, listened for a moment, then looked at Mikey with wide eyes. Dear, Lorraine said slowly, I think you need to hear what this man is saying. Marcus Sheffield's voice came through clear and professional. Miss Fanning, your grandfather left a letter. I'm required to read it to you now. It says, Mikey, I was a coward and a racist. I abandoned your mother when she married a black man because I valued my pride over my family. You paid for my sins. Your mother paid for my sins. I cannot undo the past, but I can give you the power to shape your future. Take this fortune and teach the world that cruelty has consequences. Show them what real power looks like. Make them understand what they threw away. Mikey looked down at Sage, sleeping peacefully in her arms now, warm and safe and fed. Her daughter's face was peaceful, innocent, unaware of the storm that had just passed and the one that was about to begin. Then she looked up at Lorraine, who was watching her with an expression that was half concern, half anticipation. Miss Fanning, the lawyer's voice came through the phone. Can you come to my office tomorrow to sign the papers? Time is of the essence for the estate transfer. Mikey thought about Willem's empty eyes, Eleanor's cruel smile, Cynthia's hand in her husband's hand, the security guards stripping her baby naked, the cold, the snow, the certainty that she was going to die on that bench. Her daughter's weak cries that still echoed in her ears. Yes, Mikey said, her voice steady for the first time in 3 days. I'll be there tomorrow. And Mr. Sheffield, I'm going to need you to find me the best legal team in the country, because the people who did this to me are about to learn what consequences feel like. She hung up the phone and looked at Lorraine. They threw me away like trash, Mikey whispered. They threw my baby into a snowstorm. Lorraine nodded slowly. What are you going to do? Mikey's eyes hardened. She looked at her sleeping daughter, thought about the cold, about the fear, about Willem's face as he turned away from them, about Eleanor's satisfaction, about Cynthia's smile. I'm going to teach them that mercy is weakness. And then I'm going to show them what real power looks like. Chapter 2. Hell has a new landlord, and she remembers every face. 6 weeks had passed since the snowstorm, and Mikey Fanning no longer looked like a woman who had been thrown away. She stood in the marble lobby of Sheffield and Associates, Sage sleeping peacefully in a designer carrier against her chest. Mikey wore a charcoal suit that fit her perfectly, tailored to accentuate her strength rather than hide the body that had recently given birth. Her hair was styled in natural curls that framed her face like a crown. The lawyers had spent the past weeks explaining her empire, walking her through spreadsheets and property portfolios and investment strategies, and Mikey had spent those weeks planning her war. Every detail, every move, every consequence. Everything is finalized, Marcus Sheffield said, handing her a leather portfolio. The weight of it in her hands felt significant, powerful. The estate is yours. All assets have been transferred. Your grandfather's companies are now under your control. Mikey opened the portfolio, scanning the list of properties. Hotels in Manhattan, office buildings in Chicago, apartment complexes across America, real estate holdings that stretched from coast to coast, investment portfolios that generated more money in a day than she'd made in a year as a teacher. And there, buried in the middle of the list, was something that made her smile for the first time in weeks. This hospital, she said, pointing to a name with a perfectly manicured finger, St. Catherine's Medical Center. I own this. Marcus nodded. It's part of a larger healthcare portfolio. Your grandfather invested in medical facilities across the Northeast. Why? Because that's where they threw me out. That's where security guards ripped my baby's blanket away and left us to freeze. Her voice was calm, controlled. The anger had crystallized into something colder, more dangerous. That's where nurses watched and did nothing while Eleanor Goldsmith had me removed from a maternity ward 3 days postpartum. Marcus's expression darkened. He'd heard the full story, had seen the hospital records, had been appropriately horrified. I see. I want the names of every person involved, the security guards, the administrator who authorized my removal, the nurses who stood by and watched, every single person. Miss Fanning, I understand you're angry, but I'm not angry, Mr. Sheffield. Anger is hot. Anger fades. What I am is cold, deliberate, and extremely patient. She looked up at him, her eyes hard as diamonds. Get me those names, and get me the employment contracts for everyone involved. I want to know exactly how much power I have over their lives. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. He'd learned not to argue with her. I'll have that information by end of business today. Good, because I want them to understand something very clearly. They threw away a woman they thought was powerless. They need to learn what happens when powerless people stop being powerless. By the end of the week, the 2 security guards no longer had jobs. Mikey had made sure they knew exactly why. She'd had Marcus deliver termination letters that spelled it out in detail. Their employment was being terminated for ethical violations related to the mistreatment of a patient and newborn infant. The hospital administrator who had authorized her removal found himself explaining his decision-making process to a board of directors who suddenly had a new, very interested owner asking pointed questions about patient safety and ethical treatment. One nurse, the one who had tried to intervene, received a commendation and a raise. Mikey believed in rewarding courage as much as punishing cowardice, but that was just the beginning. Mikey sat in her new penthouse apartment, the entire top floor of a building she now owned, and made a list. Eleanor Goldsmith, Willem Goldsmith, Cynthia Berry, Portia Goldsmith, Willem's sister who had called Mikey a gold digger to her face during the pregnancy, who had laughed when Mikey's water broke early, Arthur Goldsmith, Willem's father, who had stood silent while his wife destroyed their son's marriage, who had watched it all happen and done nothing. Each name got its own page, its own strategy, its own carefully calculated revenge. "What are you thinking about?" Lorraine asked. She had become a constant presence in Mikey's life, a grandmother figure to Sage, and a voice of wisdom when Mikey's anger threatened to consume her completely. "I'm thinking about how to make them understand what they did." Revenge? Justice? Lorraine sat down across from her, her expression thoughtful. "There's a difference, dear. Make sure you know which one you're pursuing." Mikey's phone buzzed. A message from her investigator, one of 3 she'd hired to dig into the Goldsmith family's life. She read it, and her smile was sharp as broken glass. "What is it?" Lorraine asked. "Willem and Cynthia are getting married. 3 months from now. Big ceremony. Eleanor is paying for everything." Mikey looked up, her eyes glittering with something cold and calculating. "And I just discovered something very interesting. The venue they're using. It went up for sale yesterday. Owner retiring wants a quick sale. And that makes you smile. Why? Because I just bought it. As of 20 minutes ago, I own the building, the grounds, and the catering company they hired." Mikey leaned back in her chair, satisfaction warming her chest. "They can still have their wedding. I'm not a monster. I'm just going to be there to watch." Lorraine's eyebrows rose. "Mikey, they can still get married, Lorraine. I'm not stopping that. I'm just making sure they understand that every space they occupy, every business they patronize, every place they think is safe, I could own it. I could be anywhere. They wanted me erased. I'm going to make sure they can never forget my name." Mikey's phone rang. Another investigator. She answered, listened, then her smile widened. "Thank you. Send me everything." "What now?" Lorraine asked, concern creeping into her voice. "Cynthia's father owns Berry Construction, direct competitor to Arthur Goldsmith's company. And it turns out the affair wasn't just romance. It was strategy." Mikey's voice was deadly calm. "Cynthia was sent to seduce Willem as part of a business plan to destroy the Goldsmith company from the inside. My investigator found emails, text messages. Cynthia's father literally instructed her to get pregnant if possible, to ensure maximum leverage over Willem." "You're sure?" "I have copies of everything, screenshots, saved emails, even a voice memo where Cynthia laughs about how easy Willem was to manipulate." Mikey stood up, walked to her window, looked out over the city that was now hers to control. Willem threw away his family for a woman who was using him as a business strategy. Should I tell him? or let him find out on his own. You're playing with people's lives, Mikey. They played with mine first. They threw my 3-day-old baby into a blizzard. So yes, I'm playing with their lives, and I'm just getting started. The invitation arrived at Willem's apartment 2 months later. Thick cream cardstock with gold lettering, Willem and Cynthia's names embossed at the top. He held it in his hands, staring at it, feeling nothing but a hollow ache in his chest. The apartment was small, cheap, the kind of place he never would have lived in before. But his mother had cut him off financially after he'd defended Mikey at that last confrontation. His construction job paid enough for rent and food, nothing more. "Are you excited?" Cynthia asked, draping her arms around his shoulders. She smelled expensive. Her perfume alone probably cost more than his weekly paycheck. 3 more months and we're married. "Yeah," Willem said, but the word tasted like ash in his mouth. He thought about Mikey every day, every single day. Where was she? Was she alive? Was the baby? Was Sage okay? He'd tried to find her, had hired a private investigator with money he didn't have, but it was like she'd vanished. Her phone was disconnected. She'd never returned to their old apartment. Even her teaching job had no forwarding information. His mother told him it was guilt, natural guilt, that he'd get over it once he married Cynthia and started his real life, that Mikey was probably dead or gone back to wherever she came from, and good riddance either way. But Willem couldn't stop seeing Mikey's face as the security guards pulled her away. Couldn't stop hearing Sage's weak cries as they stepped out into the snow. Couldn't stop wondering if his daughter had survived that first night. "You're doing it again," Cynthia said, irritation creeping into her voice, thinking about her. "I'm not. You are. You've been distant ever since the hospital. Willem, she's gone. She probably went back to wherever she came from. She's not your problem anymore." But she was. God, she was. Because every time Willem closed his eyes, he saw that moment. The moment he'd chosen his mother's approval and Cynthia's body over his wife and daughter. The moment he'd become a monster. A package arrived at Mikey's penthouse a week before Willem's wedding. Inside was the wedding invitation, forwarded from her old address. Mikey held it, reading the elegant script, feeling the expensive paper. They'd spared no expense. Of course they hadn't. "They're really doing it," she said to Lorraine. "Are you going to go?" Mikey smiled. "Oh, I'm already going. I own the venue, remember? I'll be there as the property owner who just tripled their rental fee and changed all their vendor contracts. I want to see their faces when they realize what's happening." "That's cruel, Mikey." "So is throwing a 3-day-old baby into a blizzard. I'm just getting started, Lorraine. They wanted me erased from Willem's life. I'm going to make sure they never forget my name." She picked up her phone and made 3 calls. By the time she hung up, the wedding florist had mysteriously lost their order. The photographer's equipment had been accidentally double-booked, and the catering company had suddenly discovered a health code violation that required they suspend service for 24 hours, all on Willem and Cynthia's wedding day. Mikey dressed Sage in a beautiful white dress that cost more than Willem probably made in a month at his construction job. She dressed herself in burgundy silk that hugged her curves and made her look like power incarnate. Then she drove to the venue she owned and waited. The chaos was beautiful. Eleanor Goldsmith arrived first, screaming at the venue coordinator about the rental fee increase. Her face was red, her voice shrill. "We had a contract." "The contract was with the previous owner, Mrs. Goldsmith. New ownership means new terms. You're welcome to find another venue, though I don't think you'll find one available with 3 hours' notice." Cynthia arrived next, sobbing about the flowers. Half-dead roses instead of the premium blooms she'd ordered. The photographer showed up with a camera that kept malfunctioning. The caterer never arrived at all. And then Willem saw her. Mikey sat in the back row of the ceremony space, Sage on her lap, both of them perfectly dressed and perfectly calm. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just watched, just existed in their space like a ghost they couldn't exorcise. Willem's face went white, all the blood drained from his cheeks. He grabbed his mother's arm. "What is she doing here?" Eleanor turned, saw Mikey, and her expression transformed into pure hatred. She stormed down the aisle, her heels clicking like gunshots. "You're not welcome here. Get out." Mikey stood slowly, adjusting Sage on her hip. When she spoke, her voice carried through the entire space, calm and deadly. "I own this venue, Mrs. Goldsmith. You're all my guests today, and I'm afraid I have some bad news about your catering situation." Eleanor's face turned purple. Veins stood out on her neck. "This is harassment. This is business. You taught me that everything is business, that money is power, that people like me are disposable." Mikey's voice never rose, never wavered. Each word precisely calibrated for maximum impact. "So I bought your venue. I bought your vendors. I bought your son's dignity, and now I'm going to watch what happens when people realize you can't afford respect anymore." She walked past Eleanor, past Willem, who stood frozen. She paused next to him, looked up at his face, close enough that he could see she was healthy, thriving, transformed. "She's beautiful, by the way. Your daughter, Sage. She looks like me, thank God. She didn't inherit a single thing from you." Willem's voice broke. "Mikey, you threw your newborn daughter into a snowstorm. There is no apology for that, but there will be consequences. Starting today." She walked out of the venue, leaving them standing in a space that was falling apart around them. Dead flowers, no food, malfunctioning equipment, a ceremony that had become a public humiliation. Behind her, she heard Cynthia screaming at Willem, heard Eleanor demanding someone fix this, heard the wedding guests whispering and taking photos. Lorraine was waiting in the car. Did it feel good? No, Mikey said honestly, settling Sage into her car seat. It felt necessary. What now? Now I show them that this is just the beginning. They wanted me gone? I'm going to become their entire world. The wedding photos appeared on social media the next day. Not from the professional photographer whose equipment had failed, but from guests. The chaos, the wilted flowers, Cynthia crying, Eleanor screaming at staff, Willem standing in the middle of it all, looking lost and broken. And in the background of one photo, barely visible, was Mikey walking away. Elegant, powerful, untouched by the disaster surrounding her. The caption someone had written beneath the photo went viral: "When karma shows up in Prada." Mikey saw it and closed her laptop. Sage needed to be fed. Life continued, and Willem's world was just beginning to crumble. Chapter 3. My silence was their loudest warning. The first month of Willem's marriage to Cynthia felt like drowning in slow motion. The wedding had been a disaster that their social circle still whispered about. But worse than the humiliation was the creeping realization that Mikey wasn't finished. She was everywhere and nowhere. A ghost with a platinum credit card and an army of lawyers. Willem came home from his job at his father's construction company to find Cynthia pacing their apartment, phone pressed to her ear, her voice shrill. "What do you mean we're being evicted? We just signed the lease 3 months ago." She hung up and whirled on Willem. "Your ex-wife bought our building, Willem. The landlord just informed us that new management is declining to renew any existing leases. We have 30 days to move." Willem's blood went cold. "That's not legal. We have a lease. Apparently the lease has an early termination clause if the property changes ownership. Your ex-wife's lawyers are very thorough." Cynthia threw her phone onto the couch. "This is your fault. You should have handled her better." "Handled her better? I threw her out of a hospital into a blizzard." "Exactly. You should have given her some money, kept her quiet. Instead, you let your mother turn it into this dramatic mess, and now we're all paying for it." Willem stared at his wife, his new wife, the woman he'd destroyed his family for, and he realized with sudden horrible clarity that she blamed him for everything, not for being cruel to Mikey, for being cruel unsuccessfully. His phone rang. His father. "Willem, we need to talk. Come to the office tomorrow morning." Arthur Goldsmith's voice sounded strained, older than Willem had ever heard it. "What's wrong?" "Everything. Just come tomorrow." Arthur hung up before Willem could ask more questions. The construction company office looked the same as it always had. The same faded carpet, the same metal desks. But his father looked different, smaller, defeated. "Dad, what's going on?" Arthur handed Willem a folder. "Read this." Willem opened it. Financial statements, red numbers everywhere, and at the bottom, a notice. Goldsmith Construction has been purchased by M. Fanning Holdings. M. Fanning, Willem whispered. "Mikey. She bought the company 3 days ago, bought all our debt, bought our contracts, bought everything. And this morning I got a call from her lawyers. She's not shutting us down." "She's not?" "No, she's worse than that. She's keeping us running, but under new management. I'm being demoted to senior consultant. Your uncle is being let go, and you—" Arthur looked at his son with something like pity. "You're being transferred to manual labor, apprentice level. You'll be working on construction sites doing foundation work." Willem felt the room spin. "She can't do that. She owns the company. She can do whatever she wants." "And son?" Arthur's voice cracked. "This is because of what we did. What I let your mother do. What I stood by and watched happen. Mikey Fanning didn't just survive what we did to her. She became powerful enough to destroy us. Where is she getting this money? She was a teacher. She had nothing." Arthur laughed, a bitter sound. "Apparently, she had a grandfather, Desmond Fanning. The Desmond Fanning. Hotels, real estate, billions of dollars. He died the day Sage was born and left everything to Mikey." Willem sat down hard. "The same day we threw her out. The same day you threw your billionaire wife and daughter into a snowstorm." "Yes." The reality hit Willem like a physical blow. Mikey had been trying to tell them. The phone call in the hospital. The lawyer trying to reach her. And his mother had made him throw away the phone. His mother had been so certain that Mikey was nothing, had nothing, deserved nothing. "Your mother still doesn't know," Arthur said quietly. "About the money, about what Mikey's become. She thinks this is just some lucky break, that Mikey found an investor or something. If Eleanor finds out the truth, she'll lose her mind." "Where's Mom now?" "At the country club. Where else? She still thinks we can afford it." Arthur's voice was heavy with exhaustion. "I haven't told her that Mikey bought the country club too. Our membership was revoked this morning." Willem put his head in his hands. "What have we done? We destroyed a woman for being poor and black and loving our son, and now she's showing us that she was never the problem. We were." Eleanor Goldsmith walked into her country club that afternoon, ready for her weekly bridge game, only to be stopped at the front desk by the new manager. "Mrs. Goldsmith, I'm afraid there's been a change in your membership status." Eleanor's smile froze. "Excuse me. New ownership has restructured the membership program. Your family's membership has been declined." "Declined? I've been a member here for 30 years. My husband helped found this club." "I understand, ma'am. However, management decisions are final. I'll need to ask you to leave the premises." Eleanor's voice rose. "I demand to speak to the owner." "The owner has made their position clear. Goodbye, Mrs. Goldsmith." Security appeared. Young men in crisp uniforms with expressionless faces, just like the security guards at the hospital. Eleanor felt something cold crawl down her spine. "This is Mikey," she whispered. "That black woman, she's behind this." The manager's face remained neutral. "I wouldn't know about that, ma'am. I just work here." Eleanor left, her face burning with humiliation as other members watched her escort out. She drove straight to Willem's apartment, bursting through the door without knocking. "She's destroying us. That woman is systematically destroying our family." Willem looked up from the couch, where he'd been sitting in the same position for 3 hours. "Yeah, she is." "Don't just sit there. Do something. Talk to her. Make her stop." "I threw her 3-day-old baby into a blizzard, Mum. What exactly do you think I can say that will make her stop?" Eleanor slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed in the small apartment. "You're weak, just like your father. I raised you to be strong, to take what you deserved, and instead, you're sitting here feeling sorry for yourself, while some uppity woman ruins everything I built." Willem stood slowly. For the first time in his life, he looked at his mother and saw her clearly. Not as the powerful matriarch he'd always feared and tried to please, but as a bitter, racist woman who had poisoned everyone around her. "You didn't build anything, Mom. Dad built the company. You just spent the money and looked down on people who had less than you, and now someone has more than you, and you can't handle it. How dare you? Get out!" Eleanor stared at him. "What?" "Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. I'm done listening to you. I'm done following your advice. Everything you told me to do has been wrong. Everything. Willem, I threw away my wife. I threw away my daughter. I destroyed my family because you told me that money and status mattered more than love. And where did that get me? I'm married to a woman who blames me for not being cruel enough. I'm losing my job, I'm losing my home, and my daughter is being raised by a woman who will probably tell her that her father is a monster, and she'll be right." Eleanor's face twisted. "If you had just been stronger at the hospital, none of this would have happened. We could have controlled her." "Get out!" Willem roared. "Get out before I throw you out!" Eleanor left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Cynthia emerged from the bedroom, her face calculating. "Well, that was dramatic. But she's not wrong, you know. You need to find a way to fix this." Willem looked at his new wife, really looked at her. "Do you love me?" Cynthia blinked. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one. Do you love me?" She laughed, uncomfortable. "Of course I do. Why else would I have married you?" "Because your father wanted you to. Because marrying into the Goldsmith family meant social status and business connections. That's what this was, wasn't it? A business arrangement." Cynthia's face hardened. "Don't pretend you married me for love, Willem. You married me because I was convenient and didn't ask questions and made your mother happy. So don't stand there acting like you're some romantic hero who made a mistake. You knew exactly what this was." She was right. God help him, she was right. Willem grabbed his jacket and walked out of the apartment. He didn't know where he was going until he found himself standing outside Mikey's building. He'd found her address through his father, who'd gotten it from the company paperwork. Security stopped him at the door. "Can I help you?" "I need to see Mikey Fanning." "Is she expecting you?" "No, but..." "Then you can't come in." Willem stood there, rain starting to fall, staring up at the building where his ex-wife lived with his daughter, a daughter he'd never held, never fed, never sung to sleep. A black car pulled up. The door opened and Mikey stepped out, holding Sage under an umbrella. The baby had grown. She had to be 4 months old now, maybe 5. She was laughing at something, her tiny hands reaching for the rein. Mikey saw him. Her face went blank. "Mikey, please. I just want to talk." "No. Please." 5 minutes. I'll get on my knees right here in the rain. I'll beg. Just 5 minutes. Mikey walked toward him, Sage in her arms. When she got close enough, Willem could see his daughter clearly. She had Mikey's eyes, Mikey's smile. Nothing of him, except maybe the shape of her ears. "You want 5 minutes?" Mikey's voice was quiet, cold. "Here's what I'll give you. I'll give you this. Your daughter's name is Sage. She's healthy. She's happy. She'll grow up knowing she's loved and wanted and precious. She'll never know what it feels like to be thrown away, and you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you gave that up for absolutely nothing. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't warm a baby who's freezing to death. Sorry doesn't erase 3-day-old hospital security pulling a newborn away from her mother. Sorry is what people say when they want forgiveness they haven't earned. I don't deserve forgiveness. I know that. I just want... You want to feel better. You want me to tell you it's okay, that people make mistakes, that you can be a part of her life now, but it's not okay. People make mistakes, yes, but what you did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You chose your mother. You chose Cynthia. You chose cruelty. Now live with it." She walked past him into the building. Willem stood in the rain, watching the glass doors close, and felt something break inside him that he didn't think could ever be fixed. Inside the elevator, Sage reached up and touched Mikey's face. "Mama sad?" Mikey looked at her daughter. Her perfect, beautiful daughter. "No, baby. Mama's okay. Mama's always okay." But when she got upstairs and Lorraine took Sage to play, Mikey went into her bathroom and cried for the first time since the snowstorm. Not because she still loved Willem, but because she'd seen something in his eyes that terrified her. She'd seen genuine remorse, and remorse was harder to hate than cruelty. Chapter 4. They wanted me erased. I became their only thought. Summer arrived, and with it came the slow, systematic dismantling of the Goldsmith empire. Mikey didn't attack with bombs. She used scalpels, precise, surgical, every cut designed to hurt but not kill, because killing them would have been mercy, and she wasn't feeling merciful. The eviction notices came first, then the job transfers, then the social exclusion as word spread through their circles that crossing the Goldsmiths might mean crossing M. Fanning Holdings. Nobody wanted that kind of problem. Eleanor and Arthur moved from their historic brownstone to a modest two-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood Eleanor wouldn't have driven through 6 months ago. Portia, Willem's sister, lost her position on 3 charity boards when Mikey made strategic donations to rival organizations, and Willem worked construction in the summer heat, laying foundation stones and mixing concrete alongside men half his age who didn't care who his mother was or what his last name used to mean. Arthur Goldsmith watched his son come home every night covered in concrete dust and sunburned, muscles aching, hands blistered, and he saw something he hadn't seen in years. His son was learning humility, but humility came at a cost. 3 months after the wedding, Arthur collapsed on a job site. Heart attack. Massive. The ambulance came screaming, and Willem rode with his father to the emergency room, covered in dirt and terror. "Is there family we can call?" a nurse asked. "My mother. My wife." Willem rattled off numbers with shaking hands. Eleanor arrived first, her face a mask of controlled panic. Cynthia came an hour later, annoyed at being pulled away from lunch. "They're saying he needs surgery," Eleanor said, her voice brittle. "Open heart surgery. The doctor said it's serious." "How much?" Cynthia asked. "What?" "How much does the surgery cost? We have insurance, right?" Willem stared at his wife. "My father is dying, and you're asking about money. Someone has to think practically. Do we have insurance that will cover this?" The doctor emerged before Willem could respond. Young, tired, sympathetic. "Mr. Goldsmith needs immediate surgery. Without it, he has a 20% chance of survival. With it, his chances improve to 80%. "Do it," Willem said immediately. "There's the matter of insurance authorization. We're working on it, but these things can take time, and I don't care. Do the surgery. I'll figure out how to pay for it." The doctor nodded and disappeared behind double doors. Eleanor grabbed Willem's arm. "How are you going to pay for open heart surgery? We have insurance, but there will be costs, tens of thousands in out-of-pocket expenses." "I'll figure it out." "With what money? You're working as a construction laborer." "Then I'll borrow it. I'll sell everything I own. Dad is not dying because we can't afford to save him." Cynthia's voice was cold. "My father might lend us the money." Willem looked at her. "Your father hates me. He tolerates you because you're married to me. But yes, he could lend us money, with interest and conditions." "What conditions?" "You'd have to work for him. Actually work. Not just show up. He'd want control over our finances, our life, everything." Willem understood immediately. Cynthia's father would own him, control him, and Cynthia had already decided this was acceptable. "No," Willem said. "Excuse me? I'm not selling myself to your father to save mine. There has to be another way." Eleanor's phone rang. She answered it, her face going white. "I see. Yes, thank you." She hung up, looking dazed. That was the hospital billing department. Arthur's surgery has been paid for. All of it, plus all associated costs. They won't tell me who, but the payment came through an attorney's office. Sheffield and Associates. Willem's stomach dropped. "Mikey." That's impossible. Why would she? Because she's better than us, Willem whispered. Because even after everything we did, she's still a better person than any of us will ever be. He walked to the hospital's main entrance and called Lorraine. He didn't have Mikey's number anymore, but he'd gotten Lorraine's through a mutual acquaintance. She'd agreed to pass messages to Mikey, though she made it clear she thought Willem was scum. "Lorraine, it's Willem Goldsmith. I know Mikey paid for my father's surgery. I need to thank her, please." Lorraine's voice was cool. "Mikey doesn't want your thanks." "Then what does she want?" "For you to understand that mercy isn't weakness, that's all. She wanted you to know that she could let your father die, and she chose not to. Now leave her alone." She hung up. The surgery took 6 hours. Arthur survived, but barely. He'd be in ICU for at least a week, the doctor said. Long recovery, permanent damage to his heart. He'd never be the same. Willem sat by his father's bedside that first night, watching the monitors beep, watching his father's chest rise and fall. "I'm sorry," he whispered to his unconscious father. "I'm sorry I became exactly the kind of man you taught me to be. I'm sorry I didn't learn to be better until it was too late." Arthur's eyes fluttered open. His voice was barely a whisper. "Mikey, she paid for your surgery. She saved your life. Why?" "I don't know, Dad. I destroyed her. I destroyed her life. And she saved yours." Arthur's hand, weak and cold, found Willem's. "Then maybe there's hope for you yet. If she still has mercy in her heart, maybe you can learn to deserve it." He slipped back into unconsciousness, leaving Willem alone with his guilt and a question he couldn't answer. How do you earn forgiveness from someone you tried to destroy? Across the city, Mikey sat in her penthouse, Sage asleep in the next room, Lorraine watching her with concerned eyes. "You didn't have to save his father," Lorraine said gently. "Yes, I did." "Why?" "Because Arthur Goldsmith tried to stop them. I saw it in his eyes at the hospital. He didn't want to let them throw me out, but he was too weak to stand up to Eleanor. And I won't let a weak man die when I can save him. That's the difference between me and them." "But," Mikey smiled sadly, "but I didn't do it for Willem. I did it because Sage deserves to know her grandfather someday if she wants to. And I did it because someone once told me that the greatest power is choosing mercy when you could choose revenge." "Who told you that?" "My mother. Before she died. She told me that my grandfather's greatest mistake wasn't disowning her. It was never learning how to forgive himself. She said, unforgiveness eats you alive from the inside. That revenge might feel good in the moment, but mercy lets you sleep at night." Lorraine nodded slowly. "So what now?" "Now I wait. I've taken everything from them. Their money, their status, their comfort. And I've shown them mercy exactly once. Let's see what they do with that. And if they don't learn? If they just keep being who they are?" Mikey's eyes hardened. "Then I finish what I started. Because I'll give mercy, but I won't give infinite chances. At some point, people prove they're not worth saving." She went to check on Sage, who slept peacefully, one tiny hand curled around her stuffed elephant. Mikey stroked her daughter's hair, this perfect child who would never know what it felt like to be unwanted. "Your grandmother is a monster," she whispered. "Your father was a coward, but your grandfather, he tried to be better. And maybe that's worth something. Maybe." In the ICU, Arthur Goldsmith lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the woman he'd failed to protect and the mercy she'd shown him anyway, and he made himself a promise. If he survived this, he would spend whatever time he had left trying to be worthy of that mercy, even if his son never learned how. Chapter 5. Mercy is not weakness, but they'll never know it came from me. Arthur Goldsmith spent 2 weeks in the ICU before moving to a recovery room. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. The heart attack had been massive, the kind that killed most people. But something had kept Arthur fighting. Maybe the knowledge that someone he'd wronged had saved him anyway. Eleanor came to visit every day, but her visits felt performative. She fussed over his pillows and complained about the hospital food and never once asked him how he felt. not really felt, not in his soul. Willem came every day too, before and after his construction shifts. He sat quietly, sometimes reading to his father, sometimes just sitting there covered in concrete dust and exhausted. On Arthur's 15th day in the hospital, Willem brought Lorraine. "Dad," Willem said softly, "there's someone here to see you, someone Mikey sent." Lorraine walked in, elegant and warm, and Arthur recognized her immediately from various charity events over the years, but he'd never really looked at her before, never seen the kindness in her eyes or the steel in her spine. "Mr. Goldsmith," Lorraine said, sitting down by his bed, "Mikey asked me to check on you, to make sure you're getting proper care." Arthur's eyes filled with tears. "She sent you." "She did. She wants you to know that the surgery was paid for in full. Your follow-up care, your medications, everything. She's taken care of it all." "Why?" Arthur's voice broke. "Why would she do that after what we did?" Lorraine was quiet for a long moment. "Because Mikey Fanning understands something your family never learned. That mercy is power, real power, not the kind that comes from making people smaller, the kind that comes from choosing kindness when you could choose cruelty." "I need to see her," Arthur said. "I need to apologize. I need to tell her." "You can't see her, not yet, maybe not ever. That's her choice to make." Lorraine stood. "But she wanted you to live. Remember that. When you're recovered, when you're back in the world, remember that you owe your life to a woman you helped destroy, and figure out what you're going to do with that second chance." She left, and Arthur lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of unpayable debt settle on his chest, heavier than any heart condition. Willem walked Lorraine to her car. "Is there any chance she'll see me? Let me apologize?" "Do you deserve to apologize?" The question hit Willem like a punch. No, I don't. But I want to try anyway." "Then become someone worth apologizing, not for her. For yourself, and definitely for Sage." Lorraine's voice softened. "That little girl is going to ask about her father someday. What do you want Mikey to be able to tell her?" Willem had no answer. That night, Cynthia told Willem she wanted a divorce. They sat in their cramped apartment, the one they'd moved to after being evicted, and she delivered the news like she was commenting on the weather. "This isn't working. You're obsessed with your ex-wife. Your family is a disaster, and I'm not interested in being poor." "Poor? We're not poor. I have a job. You're a construction worker, Willem. My father's gardener makes more than you." Cynthia's voice was sharp. "I married you for status and connections, and you have neither anymore, so I'm leaving." "You never loved me." "No, but you never loved me either. You loved the idea of moving on, of proving you didn't need Mikey. Well, congratulations, you proved it, and it destroyed everything." She moved out the next day, taking half of everything they owned, which wasn't much. Willem sat in the empty apartment, looking at the space where furniture used to be, and felt nothing but relief. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Goldsmith?" A woman's voice, professional, cold. "This is calling from Sheffield and Associates. Mikey Fanning has asked us to inform you that divorce papers will be delivered to Cynthia Berry tomorrow. She's also asked us to let you know that you're welcome to contest the divorce on grounds of abandonment if you choose." "Wait, Mikey is divorcing Cynthia for me?" "No, Mr. Goldsmith. Ms. Fanning is making sure your divorce from Ms. Berry is finalized quickly so that you're not tied to a woman who clearly doesn't want you. Consider it a professional courtesy." The line went dead. Willem sat there, holding the phone, trying to understand. Mikey was helping him divorce the woman he'd left her for. The woman who had been part of his betrayal. Why? Eleanor appeared at his door an hour later, her face a mask of controlled fury. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About Arthur. He wants to see Mikey. He's been asking for her constantly. The doctors say it's not healthy, that he's obsessing, but he won't stop." Eleanor paced his small living room. "We need to make him understand that woman is toxic, that she's poisoning his mind. She saved his life." Eleanor waved a dismissive hand. "She paid for surgery. So what? That doesn't erase what she's doing to our family." "What she's doing? Willem stood up. What she's doing is showing us mercy we don't deserve. She could have let Dad die. She could have destroyed us completely. Instead, she's giving us exactly enough rope to either hang ourselves or climb out of this hole. And you're so blinded by pride that you can't see the difference. Don't you dare lecture me. I raised you. You raised me to be cruel. You raised me to think that love was weakness and money was power. And where did that get me? My wife just left me. My daughter doesn't know my name. My father nearly died from the stress of what we did. When do we admit that you were wrong about everything? Eleanor slapped him for the second time in 3 months. But this time, Willem didn't flinch. He just looked at his mother with something close to pity. Get out, and don't come back until you're ready to admit that Mikey Fanning is a better person than any of us will ever be. Eleanor left, slamming the door, and Willem was alone again. Across the city, Mikey fed Sage her dinner, a small mess of sweet potatoes and peas. The baby laughed, smearing food across her face, and Mikey felt her heart swell with such fierce love it was almost painful. "Mama loves you," she whispered, wiping Sage's chin. "More than anything in the world." Lorraine appeared in the doorway. "I saw Arthur today." "I know, thank you for going. He wants to see you. He's desperate to apologize." "I'm not ready. Will you ever be?" Mikey was quiet for a long time. "I don't know. I saved him because it was the right thing to do, but I don't think I can sit in a room with him and listen to apologies. Not yet. Maybe not ever." "And Willem? What about him?" "He's changing," Arthur told me. Said Willem comes every day, works himself to exhaustion, is becoming someone different. Good for him. "Mikey." "I don't want to hear it, Lorraine. He threw me away. He threw Sage away. I don't care if he's become a saint. Some things can't be forgiven." "But you paid for his father's surgery." "I did that for Arthur, and I did it for Sage. Someday she might want to know her grandfather. I won't let her grandfather die because I was too angry to save him. But that doesn't mean I forgive Willem. That doesn't mean I'll ever let him near us." Lorraine nodded slowly. "Fair enough, but answer me this. When does the revenge stop? When have they suffered enough?" Mikey looked at her daughter, this perfect, innocent child who deserved a world full of love and mercy. "When they prove they've learned. When they show me they understand that cruelty has consequences and mercy is a gift, not a right. Then maybe I'll consider that they've suffered enough. And until then, they get exactly what they deserve, no more, no less." But late that night, after Sage was asleep, Mikey stood at her penthouse window, looking out over the city lights, and wondered if Lorraine was right. If revenge had an end point, or if she'd just keep hurting them until there was nothing left to hurt. And she wondered if, somewhere in this city, Willem was standing at his own window asking himself the same question. Chapter 6. His world burned while I built mine. 1 year after the snowstorm, Mikey Fanning had everything. A penthouse that overlooked the city like a throne room. A daughter who grew more beautiful every day. A business empire that expanded with every strategic acquisition. Friends, real friends, who loved her for who she was, not what she could give them. And a reputation as someone not to be crossed unless you wanted your entire world systematically dismantled. She stood in her walk-in closet, choosing a dress for tonight's charity gala, when Sage toddled in wearing nothing but a diaper and a smile. "Mama, up!" Mikey scooped up her daughter, spinning her around until Sage shrieked with laughter. 1 year old. How was she already 1 year old? It felt like yesterday that Mikey had been holding her in that hospital room, terrified and alone. "You ready to get dressed, baby girl?" "No dress." "Yes, dress. We're going to see people tonight, and Mama needs you to look like the princess you are." Lorraine appeared in the doorway, already dressed in an elegant navy gown. "The car will be here in an hour. Are you sure you want to bring Sage? These galas run late." "I want everyone to see her. I want them to see exactly what the goldsmiths threw away. Revenge dressed in designer children's clothing. Lovely." Mikey shot her a look. "It's not revenge. It's truth." The charity gala was held at the Grand Riverside Hotel, one of the few venues in the city that Mikey didn't own. Yet. The theme was toys for children, ironically enough, and the guest list included every wealthy family in their social circle, including what was left of the goldsmiths. Mikey walked in with Sage on her hip, the baby wearing a deep burgundy velvet dress that perfectly complemented Mikey's gold gown. Heads turned, whispers started, cameras flashed. She looked like power incarnate, and she knew it. "Mikey Fanning, as I live and breathe." A woman approached, dripping in diamonds and insincerity. "And this must be your daughter. She's adorable." "Thank you." Mikey's smile was professional, distant. "I heard the most interesting rumor that you're the mysterious owner of M. Fanning Holdings, but that couldn't possibly be true, could it? You used to be a teacher." The condescension was obvious. Mikey's smile sharpened. "I was a teacher. Now I'm a businesswoman. Turns out inheriting $2 billion opens doors." The woman's face went pale. $2 billion. "Give or take. My grandfather was generous. Now, if you'll excuse me, I see someone I'd like to avoid." She walked away, leaving the woman gaping, and headed straight toward the bar. Where she came face to face with Willem, he looked different, thinner, harder. His hands were calloused, his skin sun-weathered from construction work. The expensive suit he wore hung a little loose, like he'd lost weight and couldn't afford to have it altered. Their eyes met, and Mikey watched emotions flash across his face. Shock, pain, longing, regret. Mikey. His voice cracked on her name. Willem. They stood 3 feet apart, Sage between them like a living reminder of everything he'd thrown away. The baby looked at Willem curiously, reaching out one small hand toward this stranger. "Can I?" Willem's voice broke. "Can I say hello to her?" "No." The word was final, absolute. Willem's hand, which had been reaching toward Sage, dropped to his side. "She's beautiful. I know. She has your eyes. I know. I'm sorry." The words tumbled out. "I'm so sorry, Mikey. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Every single day, I'm sorry." Mikey looked at him, really looked at him, and saw genuine anguish in his eyes. But she also remembered the hospital, the snow, Sage's weak cries as they threw them out. "You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry that the woman you threw me away for turned out to be exactly who I told you she was. You're sorry that your life fell apart, but are you sorry that you hurt me? Or are you just sorry that hurting me had consequences?" Willem flinched like she'd hit him. "Both. I'm sorry for both." "Well, at least you're honest now." Mikey shifted Sage to her other hip. "Stay away from us, Willem. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your regret. I want you to live the rest of your life knowing exactly what you threw away, and I want you to know that you'll never get it back." She started to walk away. "I'm in therapy," Willem said desperately. "I'm working construction. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to become someone worth what? Worth me." Mikey turned back, her voice cutting. "You'll never be worth me. You'll never be worth Sage. You could become the best man who ever lived, and it still wouldn't change the fact that you threw your 3-day-old daughter into a blizzard. There is no redemption for that." She walked away, leaving him standing at the bar, destroyed. But as she walked, holding Sage close, Mikey felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not victory, just emptiness. The revenge had felt good for months, but standing there, looking at Willem's broken face, she'd felt nothing but tired. Lorraine found her on the terrace, looking out over the city lights. "You saw him?" "Yeah. How did it feel?" "Like winning a race where everyone else fell down. Technically I won, but there's no glory in it." Sage had fallen asleep against Mikey's shoulder, her small body warm and trusting. Lorraine touched the baby's hair gently. "She deserves to know her father. She deserves a father worth knowing. And if he's becoming that, then good for him. But it's too late for us." Mikey's voice was firm. "I saved his father's life. I didn't destroy him completely when I could have. That's all the mercy he's getting from me." Inside the gala, Willem stood at the bar, watching Mikey through the windows. She looked so strong, so complete. She didn't need him, didn't want him, and he'd done that to her. He'd forced her to become strong enough to survive without him. "Pathetic," a voice said beside him. Willem turned to see Cynthia, dressed in something tight and red, her arm linked through some older man's elbow. She looked happy, unburdened. Cynthia. Still mooning over the ex-wife? God, Willem, it's been a year. Move on. Did you ever love me? She laughed. Love? What's love got to do with anything? I married you for connections. You married me for convenience. We both got what we deserved, which was a quick divorce and a lesson learned. What lesson? That love is for poor people. Rich people marry strategically. She patted his cheek condescendingly. You were better off with the teacher. She actually loved you, but you were too stupid to see it. She walked away, leaving Willem alone with the bartender, who poured him a whiskey without being asked. Rough night? Rough year. Woman trouble? Willem laughed bitterly. I destroyed my family for a woman who never loved me and lost the woman who did. So yeah, woman trouble. Can I give you some advice? Sure. Why not? The bartender, an older man with kind eyes, leaned forward. Apologizing is good. Changing is better. But the best thing you can do? Live a life that proves you learned the lesson. Don't do it for her. Don't do it to win her back. Do it because being the man who threw away his family is too painful to keep being. Willem stared at his drink. What if it's too late? Then at least your daughter will grow up knowing her father became someone worth respecting, even if it's from a distance. The bartender moved away, leaving Willem alone with that thought. Across the terrace, Mikey held her sleeping daughter and made a decision. She was done with active revenge, done with systematically destroying the goldsmiths. She'd taken enough, hurt them enough, made her point. Now she would just live her best life and let them watch from the outside. That would be punishment enough. But even as she made that decision, she wondered why it didn't feel like the victory she'd been chasing all year. Chapter 7. The cruelest punishment is showing them what they lost. 18 months after the snowstorm, Willem saw his daughter for the second time in her life. It was pure accident. He'd been walking through Riverside Park during his lunch break from the construction site, eating a sandwich and trying not to think about his empty apartment or his emptier life. And there she was, Mikey, pushing a stroller, Sage walking beside her on wobbly toddler legs. The baby, no, not a baby anymore, a little girl, was laughing at something, her small hand gripping Mikey's finger for balance. Willem's feet stopped moving. His sandwich fell from his hand. Sage was walking. When had she started walking? What else had he missed? First words, first laugh, first everything? Lorraine was with them, holding a small pink ball that Sage kept reaching for. The three of them looked like a family, complete, perfect. No empty spaces waiting to be filled. Mikey hadn't seen him yet. Willem knew he should leave, should walk away before this became a confrontation. But he couldn't move. He stood there, frozen, watching his daughter discover the world without him. Then Sage turned her head, following a butterfly, and looked directly at him. Their eyes met. Brown eyes, so much like Mikey's, curious, innocent, unknowing. Willem started crying, right there in the middle of the park, watching his daughter look at him like he was any stranger, because that's what he was, a stranger, a man who had given her life but nothing else. Mikey followed Sage's gaze and saw him. Her face went carefully blank. She said something to Lorraine, picked up Sage and walked away. No acknowledgement, no anger, just nothing. Willem sank onto a park bench and broke down completely. Not quiet crying, full sobs that shook his entire body. An older woman sitting nearby asked if he was okay, and he couldn't even answer her. He'd known intellectually what he'd given up. But seeing Sage, seeing her as a real person, a tiny human with her own personality and laugh and way of walking, that made it visceral, real, permanent. His phone buzzed. Arthur. Son, where are you? We're supposed to meet for lunch. I can't, I saw her, Dad. I saw Sage. She was walking and laughing, and she looked at me like I was nothing. Because I am nothing to her. Where are you? Riverside Park, East Entrance. Stay there. Arthur arrived 20 minutes later, looking better than he had since the heart attack, but still moving carefully. He sat down beside Willem, saying nothing, just sitting there while his son fell apart. She's so beautiful, Willem finally said. She's perfect, and I threw her away. Yes, you did. I don't know how to live with that. Arthur was quiet for a long time. You live with it by becoming someone who would never do it again. That's all you can do. It's not enough. No, it's not. But it's all you have. They sat there until sunset, two men who had learned too late that some mistakes can't be fixed, only lived with. That night, Willem started writing letters. Not to Mikey, because she'd made it clear she didn't want his words, but to Sage, letters she would never read, at least not for years. Maybe never. Dear Sage, he wrote, today I saw you for the second time in your life. You were walking in the park, holding your mother's hand, and you looked so happy. I wanted to run to you, to pick you up, to tell you I'm your father, but I'm not your father. Being a father means more than biology. It means being there, and I wasn't. I made a choice that I'll regret for the rest of my life. I threw you and your mother away because I was weak and cruel and listened to people who didn't know what love meant. I don't expect you to ever forgive me. I just want you to know that somewhere in this city there's a man who loves you desperately, who thinks about you every single day, who would give anything to undo the worst moment of his life. Your mother is a better person than I'll ever be. She's raising you to be strong and loved and precious, and I'm grateful to her for that, even though I'll never get to be part of it. I love you, Sage. I'm sorry I didn't show you that when it mattered. He wrote letters every night after that, hundreds of them. Filling notebooks with words Sage would never read, apologies she would never hear, love she would never know came from him. Meanwhile, across the city, Mikey sat in her penthouse office, reviewing contracts when Lorraine appeared with tea. You saw him today, in the park. I saw someone who looked like Willem. I didn't stop to confirm. Mikey. What do you want me to say, Lorraine? That my heart broke seeing him break down? That some part of me wanted to go to him? Mikey's voice was sharp. Because it didn't. I felt nothing. Just relief that Sage doesn't know who he is. You felt nothing? Nothing. But that was a lie. Mikey had felt something. Not love, not forgiveness, but something uncomfortable and unwelcome. Pity. She'd seen Willem crying on that bench, and for just a moment, she'd felt sorry for him. Then she'd remembered the hospital, the cold, Sage's weak cries, and the pity had vanished like morning fog. Sage toddled into the office dragging her stuffed elephant. Mama, hungry. Okay, baby, let's get you dinner. As Mikey scooped up her daughter, Sage looked toward the window, toward the city lights, and said something that stopped Mikey's heart. Who was the crying man? Mikey knelt down to Sage's level. What crying man, baby? In the park. The man who was crying when he looked at me. Children noticed everything. Mikey had forgotten that. She'd thought Sage was too young to understand what she'd seen, but Sage had noticed, had felt something was important about that moment. Just someone who was sad. Why sad? Because sometimes people lose things that matter to them, things they can never get back. Sage considered this with the serious expression toddlers get when they're processing complex emotions. Like when I lost my toy? Kind of like that, baby, but bigger, much bigger. Sage nodded, satisfied with this explanation, and toddled off toward the kitchen. But Mikey stayed kneeling there, her hands shaking slightly. Sage had noticed Willem, had registered his pain, and someday, sooner than Mikey wanted, Sage would start asking real questions. Questions Mikey would have to answer honestly. What will you tell her? Lorraine asked quietly. When she's old enough to understand. The truth, that her father threw us away when she was 3 days old, that he chose cruelty over love, that he didn't deserve her. And if he's changed, if he's spending every day becoming someone different, then good for him. But it doesn't change the past. It doesn't erase what he did. No, Lorraine agreed, but maybe it creates a different future, for Sage, if not for you. Mikey didn't answer. She went to feed her daughter, and later that night, after Sage was asleep, she stood at her window looking out at the city and wondered where Willem was. If he was still sitting on that park bench, if he was home in his small apartment, if he was writing more letters that she would never read. She'd made him a ghost in his own daughter's life, and that had seemed like justice. But watching Sage notice his pain, seeing her daughter's small face register that something important was happening, that made Mikey wonder if justice and cruelty were maybe closer together than she'd wanted to believe. She pushed the thought away. She'd given the Goldsmiths enough, more than enough. They didn't get her guilt on top of everything else they'd taken, but the thought wouldn't quite leave. It lingered like smoke, uncomfortable and persistent. Across the city, Willem wrote another letter. Dear Sage, I wonder what you'll think of me when you're old enough to understand. Will you hate me? Will you feel nothing? Or will you maybe, possibly understand that people make terrible mistakes and spend their whole lives wishing they could take them back? I don't know. But I'm going to spend every day trying to become someone you won't be ashamed of, even if you never know my name. Love, your father, the man who doesn't deserve to call himself that. He sealed the letter, added it to the growing stack in his drawer, and wondered how many letters it would take before the guilt stopped suffocating him. The answer, he was learning, was that there weren't enough letters in the world. Chapter 8. Sometimes the greatest revenge is moving on. 2 years after the snowstorm, Mikey Fanning met someone new. His name was Maxwell Porter, an architect who'd been hired to design a new wing for one of her hotels. He was handsome, successful, kind. He made her laugh. He treated Sage like she was precious. And he had no idea who the Goldsmiths were, which meant he had no opinion about Mikey's past. He was, in every way, exactly what Mikey should want. They'd been dating for 2 months when he asked her to dinner at Marconi's, the Italian restaurant in the financial district. Mikey wore emerald green, Sage stayed home with Lorraine, and for the first time in 2 years, Mikey felt like a woman instead of a warrior. You look beautiful tonight, Maxwell said, holding her chair. Thank you. I mean, you always look beautiful, but tonight you look happy. Was she happy? Mikey considered the question while the waiter poured wine. She was successful, Sage was thriving, her life was full. But was she happy? I'm content, she said finally, not happy. Happiness feels like something that happens to other people. I'm just trying to build a good life for my daughter. Maxwell reached across the table, took her hand. What if I told you that you deserve to be happy too? That being a good mother and being happy aren't mutually exclusive? Mikey squeezed his hand, grateful, but before she could answer, movement by the entrance caught her eye. Willem walked in with his father. 2 years had changed him. He looked older, more weathered. His suit was cheaper than the one he'd worn to the charity gala. His hair needed cutting. But there was something different in the way he carried himself. Less arrogance, more humility. Their eyes met across the restaurant. Willem's face went through a series of expressions. Shock, pain, resignation. He saw Maxwell, saw their joined hands, understood immediately what he was looking at, and something in his eyes just died. Arthur noticed where Willem was looking and put a hand on his son's shoulder, steering him toward a table on the far side of the restaurant, away from Mikey, giving her space. Someone you know? Maxwell asked. My ex-husband. Should we leave? No, he doesn't get to control where I eat or who I eat with. We stay. But the rest of dinner was strained. Mikey could feel Willem's presence across the room like a physical weight. Every time she laughed at something Maxwell said, she wondered if Willem heard. Every time Maxwell touched her hand, she wondered if Willem saw. And she hated that she wondered. Hated that even after 2 years, Willem's presence could affect her evening. When they left, Willem was still there, sitting across from his father, barely touching his food. Mikey walked past their table with her head high, Maxwell's hand at the small of her back. "Mikey," Arthur said quietly. She stopped, looked down at Arthur Goldsmith, this man whose life she'd saved, who looked at her now with such profound sadness and respect. "Mr. Goldsmith, you look well. Happy. I am. Good. You deserve that." Arthur's voice was sincere. "You deserved it 2 years ago, and you deserve it now." Mikey nodded once and walked away. She didn't look at Willem, didn't acknowledge him at all. Outside, Maxwell helped her into his car. "That was intense. That was my old life. Do you still love him?" The question was direct, honest. Mikey appreciated that. "No, I don't love him. I don't even hate him anymore. He's just nothing. A stranger who I used to know." But that night, alone in her penthouse after Maxwell dropped her off, Mikey stood at her window and admitted the truth to herself. Willem wasn't nothing. He was the father of her child. He was the man who had nearly destroyed her. He was someone who had fundamentally altered the course of her life. You didn't spend this much energy avoiding someone who meant nothing. Willem went home that night and destroyed his apartment. Not intentionally. It started with him punching the wall, then throwing a chair, then just methodically breaking everything he could reach, until his hands bled and his knuckles were swollen and his apartment looked like a crime scene. Arthur found him 2 hours later, sitting in the wreckage, crying. "She's dating someone," Willem said. "She looked at me like I was nothing, and she's dating someone else, and she's happy. Dad, she's happy without me." "Of course she is. Did you think she'd spend her life mourning you?" "No, I just—" Willem couldn't finish the sentence. What had he thought? That maybe if he suffered enough, changed enough, became better enough, that someday Mikey would give him a chance. "Son, you need to accept something that's going to hurt." Arthur sat down in the wreckage. "Mikey Fanning doesn't owe you anything, not forgiveness, not a second chance, not even acknowledgement. You threw her away. She survived. She built an empire. She's raising your daughter to be strong and loved. And now she's moving on with her life. That's not cruel. That's healthy." "But I've changed. I'm different. You're becoming a better person." "Good. Do it for yourself, not for her. Do it for Sage. Do it because being the man who threw away his family was killing you. But don't do it expecting Mikey to notice or care or reward you. That's not how redemption works." Willem looked at his bleeding hands. "How do I stop loving her?" "You don't. You just learn to live with it. The way she learned to live with what you did." Arthur left, and Willem sat in his destroyed apartment, understanding for the first time that some doors, once closed, never open again. No matter how hard you knock, no matter how much you've changed, no matter how desperately you want a second chance. Across the city, Mikey lay in bed, unable to sleep. Maxwell had texted twice, sweet messages about what a nice evening they'd had. She'd responded appropriately, but her mind was on Willem, the look in his eyes when he'd seen her with Maxwell, the way he'd gone still, like someone had shot him, the death of hope in his expression. "Why do I care?" she whispered to her dark bedroom. "Because you're human," a voice in her head answered. "Because seeing someone you once loved in pain is always hard, even when they deserve it." Mikey rolled over, checked on Sage through the baby monitor. Her daughter slept peacefully, unaware of the complicated emotions swirling through her mother. Tomorrow, Mikey decided, she would tell Maxwell that she needed to slow things down, not because of Willem, but because she'd realized tonight that she was using Maxwell as armor against feelings she didn't want to examine. She wasn't ready to date, wasn't ready to let someone new into her life, not because she still loved Willem, but because she was still healing from what he'd done. And pretending otherwise wasn't fair to Maxwell, who deserved someone who could love him fully, not someone who was using him to prove a point to a man who wasn't even watching. Sage stirred in her crib, made a small sound, then settled back into sleep. "I'm doing my best, baby," Mikey whispered. I promise I'm doing my best. But her best felt awfully complicated tonight. Chapter 9. The hardest battle is forgiving yourself for wanting to forgive. 3 weeks after the restaurant, Mikey ended things with Maxwell. He'd been gracious about it, understanding even. I knew your heart wasn't in it. I'd hoped it might be, eventually, but I can't compete with a ghost. You're not competing with anyone, I'm just not ready. Are you sure, Maxwell had asked gently, or are you punishing yourself for what he did? The question haunted Mikey for days. Was she punishing herself? She'd built an empire, raised a beautiful daughter, created a life that most people would envy. But she hadn't let herself truly heal, hadn't let herself feel anything but anger and determination. And now, 2 years later, the anger was fading, and she didn't know what to feel instead. Sage found her in the study one afternoon, staring at nothing. Mama sad? Mikey pulled her daughter into her lap. 2 years old now, smart, observant, so much more aware than Mikey sometimes remembered. Mama's just thinking, baby. About what? About how to be strong and soft at the same time. Sage didn't understand that, obviously, but she patted Mikey's face with her small hand, her way of offering comfort, and Mikey's heart cracked open just a little. You know what, baby? Let's go to the park. Just us. No schedules, no meetings, just playing. They spent the afternoon at Riverside Park, the same park where Willem had seen them months ago. Sage ran around the playground, fearless and laughing, while Mikey watched from a bench. She's beautiful. Mikey turned to find Arthur Goldsmith standing a respectful distance away. He looked healthier than he had at the restaurant, color in his cheeks, strength in his stance. Mr. Goldsmith, I come here sometimes to watch the children play. Reminds me that life is simple when you let it be. He gestured to the bench. May I? Mikey considered saying no, but Arthur had never been cruel to her. He'd been silent, complicit, but never actively cruel. If you stay on that end. He sat, maintaining the distance. They watched Sage play in comfortable silence for several minutes. Willem asks about her every day, Arthur said finally. Wants to know if she's happy, if she's healthy, if she needs anything. She doesn't need anything from Willem. I know, but a father worries, even when he doesn't have the right. Mikey looked at him. Why are you telling me this? Because I owe you my life, because you could have let me die, and you didn't. Because I think you deserve to know that my son isn't the man he was 2 years ago. Arthur's voice was steady, sincere. He works construction, lives in a studio apartment with nothing but photos of Sage on his walls, volunteers at a youth center teaching carpentry to at-risk kids. He's in therapy, he doesn't date. He barely speaks to Eleanor because she still refuses to admit she was wrong. Good for him. Mikey, I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm asking you to know that he's trying to become someone Sage won't be ashamed of someday. Not for you. For her. Mikey watched Sage go down the slide, arms up in triumph. Does he know you're talking to me? No. He'd be horrified. He made me promise never to contact you, never to bother you. This is my decision. Why? Because I stood silent once when I should have spoken up. I won't make that mistake again. Arthur stood, preparing to leave. My son made the worst mistake of his life, but he's paying for it every single day, and I thought you deserved to know that your mercy mattered. It gave him something to live up to. He walked away before Mikey could respond. That night, Lorraine found Mikey in her study, staring at her laptop screen. On it was Willem's social media profile, which she'd never looked at before. Photos of construction sites, of kids learning woodworking, of sunset views from what must be his apartment window. No photos of women, no photos of parties or expensive dinners. Just a quiet life, lived simply. What are you doing? Lorraine asked. I don't know. Mikey closed the laptop. Arthur came to see me today. And he says Willem's changed, that he's become someone different. Do you believe him? I don't know what I believe anymore. I spent 2 years being angry, and now I'm just tired. The revenge felt good for a while, but it doesn't anymore. It just feels exhausting. Lorraine sat down across from her. So what do you want? I want to go back in time and never meet Willem Goldsmith. I want to have chosen differently, loved differently, protected myself and Sage differently, but I can't have that. So I guess I want to stop feeling like I'm at war with my own past. Then maybe it's time to declare peace. How do I do that without forgiving him? I'm not ready to forgive him. Peace doesn't require forgiveness. It just requires letting go of the need for him to hurt as much as you did. And I think maybe you've already let that go. You're just afraid to admit it. Mikey looked at Sage's baby monitor, watching her daughter sleep. She's going to ask about him someday, soon. She already noticed him crying in the park months ago. When she asks, what do I say? You tell her the truth, that her father made a terrible mistake, that he's trying to be better, and that you're still figuring out what that means for all of you. I don't want her to grow up thinking betrayal is forgivable. No, you want her to grow up thinking people are capable of change. That's different. Mikey sat with that for a long time after Lorraine left. Across the city, Willem was writing another letter. Dear Sage, today I saw a little girl at the construction site. She couldn't have been more than 4, brought by her dad to see where he works. She held his hand and called him Daddy with such trust and love. And I realized that's what I threw away. Not just you, not just your mother, but the right to be called Daddy. The right to have you trust me. I don't know if I'll ever get that back. I don't know if I deserve to, but I'm trying to become someone who might. Someone who, if you met me on the street someday, wouldn't make you feel ashamed. That's all I have left to hope for. Love, the man who should have been your father. He sealed the letter, added it to the stack, over 500 now, and wondered what Sage would think of them if she ever read them. Would they matter? Would they mean anything at all? Or would they just be proof that sometimes, no matter how much you change, some mistakes are too big to fix? He didn't know, but he kept writing anyway, because hope, even hopeless hope, was better than giving up completely. Chapter 10. The greatest power is choosing love after learning to live without it. 3 years after the snowstorm, Sage asked the question that changed everything. Mikey was making breakfast, Sage sitting at the table coloring, when her daughter held up a picture. Mama, who this? It was an old photo, one Mikey thought she'd thrown away. Her and Willem, young and happy, before Sage, before the betrayal, before everything fell apart. Where did you find that? In the drawer. Who the man? Mikey sat down slowly, her heart pounding. That's Willem, he's your father. Sage studied the photo with the serious intensity of a 3-year-old. My daddy? Yes, baby. Where he? And there it was. The question Mikey had been dreading for 3 years. Where is your father? Why isn't he here? Why doesn't he love us? It's complicated, sweetheart. I want Daddy. 3 words, simple, direct, devastating. Mikey looked at her daughter, at this perfect child who deserved a complete family, and felt something inside her finally break. Not anger, not pride, just exhaustion. She was so tired of carrying this rage, this hurt, this need to punish Willem for what he'd done. Let me think about it, okay? Sage nodded, satisfied for now, and went back to coloring. Mikey called Lorraine. She asked about him. And I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to tell her he doesn't deserve to know her. But she wants him, Lorraine. My baby wants her father. Then maybe it's time to let her have him. Not for Willem, for Sage. That afternoon, Mikey did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She called Willem. His phone rang 4 times before he answered, breathless. Hello? It's Mikey. Silence. Then, is Sage okay? Is something wrong? She's fine. She asked about you today. She found an old photo and wants to know where her daddy is. More silence. When Willem spoke again, his voice was broken. What did you tell her? That I'd think about it. Willem, I need you to understand something. If I let you into her life, it's not for you. It's for her. You don't get me back. You might never get me back. But she deserves a father. I understand. I need you to meet me tomorrow. Riverside Park, 2 o'clock. Just you. I'll be there. Mikey hung up and stood there, shaking, wondering if she was making the biggest mistake of her life or the bravest decision. The next day, Willem arrived at Riverside Park 30 minutes early. He wore his best clothes, which weren't much. His hair was neatly cut. His hands were clean, nails trimmed. He looked like a man preparing for the most important interview of his life, because that's what this was. Mikey arrived at exactly 2 o'clock, Sage holding her hand. The little girl saw Willem and hid behind her mother's leg, suddenly shy. "Hi," Willem said, his voice barely audible. "Hi," Mikey answered. They stood there, 3 feet apart, 3 years of pain between them. "Sage," Mikey said gently, "this is Willem. He's your daddy." Sage peeked out from behind Mikey's leg. "You, my daddy?" Willem knelt down, tears already streaming down his face. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm your daddy." "Why you not home?" The question broke him. "Because I made a really big mistake. I hurt your mommy. I wasn't a good man. But I'm trying to be better now." Sage considered this with the brutal honesty of childhood. "You mean?" "I was mean. Yes, I was very mean. And I'm sorry." "You sorry to Mama?" Willem looked up at Mikey, his face devastated. "So sorry. Every single day I'm sorry." Mikey spoke, her voice steady. "Willem, I need you to understand the rules. You can see Sage, supervised, once a week, for 1 hour. If you miss a visit, you don't get another chance. If you're late, the visit is cancelled. If you hurt her in any way, emotionally or otherwise, I will make the last 3 years look like mercy. Do you understand?" "Yes." "You don't get to make promises you can't keep. You don't get to be daddy for a month and then disappear. She needs consistency, reliability, things you've never shown before." "I understand. I'll be here. Every week, whatever time you say, I promise." "Don't promise," Mikey said sharply. "Just do it." Willem nodded, turning back to Sage. "Would you like to go to the swings with me?" Sage looked up at Mikey. "Mama come?" "Mama will watch from right here." Sage took Willem's hand tentatively, and Willem made a sound like his heart was breaking and healing at the same time. They walked to the swings together, Sage's small hand in his large, calloused one. Mikey sat on a bench, watching. Lorraine appeared beside her, though Mikey hadn't noticed her arrive. "You did the right thing." "Did I? Or did I just let him back in to hurt us again?" "You gave your daughter a chance to know her father. That's not weakness. That's strength." On the swings, Sage laughed as Willem pushed her gently. "Higher, Daddy." Willem pushed her a little higher, his face a mixture of joy and agony. "Is this good?" "Higher!" Mikey watched them, feeling something complicated and painful in her chest. Not love, not forgiveness, but maybe the beginning of something that could eventually become peace. The hour passed quickly. When it was time to go, Sage hugged Willem goodbye, a quick child's hug that lasted only seconds but meant everything. "See you next week?" Sage asked. "I promise." Willem caught himself. "Yes, next week, same time." "Okay, Daddy." She ran back to Mikey, chattering about the swings, about how high she went, about how Daddy was nice. Willem approached Mikey slowly. "Thank you. I know I don't deserve this. I know you're right. You don't deserve this. But she does. So don't make me regret it." "I won't." "Mikey, I've spent 3 years trying to become someone worth—" "I know," Arthur told me. "But Willem," Mikey's voice was firm, "this isn't about you earning redemption. This is about Sage getting to know her father. Keep that straight in your head, or we're done." "I understand." Mikey walked away, Sage skipping beside her, talking about how Daddy promised to push her higher next week. "He promised," Sage said happily. "Yeah, baby, he did." Mikey looked down at her daughter. "But promises are only as good as the person making them. We'll see if he keeps it." But somehow, Looking at Willem's face, seeing the desperate hope and determination there, Mikey thought maybe he would. 6 months later, Willem had kept every single appointment. Every week, same time, early every time. He brought small gifts, never expensive, just thoughtful. A stuffed animal from the construction site gift shop, a drawing he'd made, a butterfly he'd caught and released with Sage watching. The supervised visits had moved from the park to coffee shops to the aquarium. Sage talked about Daddy constantly, made him drawings, asked when she'd see him again. And slowly, painfully, Mikey started to believe that maybe people really could change. Arthur visited one evening after a visit where Willem had taught Sage to skip stones at the pond. He talks about these hours like they're sacred, plans for them all week, shows up 30 minutes early every time. I know, I watch him wait. Are you still angry? Mikey considered the question honestly. No, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just cautious. He threw us away once. What's to stop him from doing it again? Fear, Arthur said simply. He's terrified every week that you'll cancel the visits, that Sage will decide she doesn't want to see him. He knows how fragile this is. Good. He should know. But that night, watching Sage sleep, holding the drawing she'd made of Mama and Daddy and me, Mikey wondered if maybe, just maybe, forgiveness didn't have to mean forgetting. Maybe it could mean accepting that people break and sometimes, rarely, they put themselves back together into something better. On his side of the city, Willem added another letter to his collection. Dear Sage, today you asked me to teach you to skip stones. We stood by the pond and I showed you how to hold the rock flat, how to flick your wrist. You laughed every time you made the stone bounce, and I realized this is what I almost missed forever. These small, perfect moments, your laughter, your joy, your tiny hand in mine. I can never undo what I did. But maybe, if I'm very lucky, I can build something new, not the family we should have been, but maybe the family we can still become. If your mother lets me, if you want me, if I can prove I've learned that love isn't possession, it's showing up, every single time. Love, Daddy. He sealed it, added it to the stack, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt something other than guilt. He felt hope. The snowstorm had nearly destroyed them, but Mikey had learned that the most powerful women don't just survive the cold, they decide who deserves to come back in from it. And sometimes, just sometimes, the greatest strength is choosing forgiveness after learning you never needed their love to survive.